Hey guys, just a quick one before you listen. Most of you guys aren't subscribed, so please help this new channel grow. You'll also be supporting me. Thank you. It was just like any other Wednesday night. I had worked a long day at the office and didn't feel like cooking when I got home. Scrolling through my phone, I decided to order some takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant downtown using DoorDash. Pad Thai and green curry sounded perfect. I placed the order and settled in on the couch to wait, tugging a blanket around myself. Within half an hour, I heard a car pull up outside. I peered out the window and saw the DoorDash delivery driver stepping out with a paper bag in hand. I met him at the door, thanked him, and brought the food inside, eager to dig in. The containers felt warm in my hands as I carried them to the kitchen counter. I popped them open. Everything looked perfectly normal, the food steaming hot and smelling delicious. I scooped some curry onto a plate and grabbed a spoon. The first bite was piping hot, but as I swallowed, I noticed an odd, bitter aftertaste. Frowning, I took another small bite. The more I ate, the more pronounced the strange, chemical-like flavor became. Something definitely wasn't right. I examined the curry closely, pushing aside pieces of chicken and vegetables. That's when I saw them, tiny white granules mixed throughout, almost camouflaged by the creamy yellow sauce. I dipped my pinky finger in and rubbed some between my fingertips. The texture was gritty, powdery. A cold feeling of dread washed over me. This was no ordinary ingredient. My pulse quickened as I stared at the tainted curry. What was this substance? How had it gotten into my food? I tasted a hint of it on my tongue now, growing more bitter by the second. I rushed to the sink and gulped down water, trying to rid my mouth of the acrid flavor. With shaking hands, I opened the other containers. The pad thai noodles, the salad, the spring rolls. Each dish contained those same granules, though in smaller quantities. Fear swirled in my gut. I hadn't eaten much, but was it enough to make me sick? Poison me, even? I paced the kitchen, my head spinning. Should I call 911? Drive myself to the ER? I imagined trying to explain this bizarre situation to the incredulous staff. No, I couldn't overreact, but I also couldn't ignore what was right in front of me. I decided to call the restaurant first. When the manager answered, I could barely keep the tremor out of my voice as I explained what I had found. He sounded deeply alarmed, insisting the powder did not come from his kitchen. He said he would look into it immediately and report it to the proper authorities. I hung up, only slightly reassured. If not the restaurant, then where? A disturbing thought entered my mind. What if the delivery driver had tampered with my food before dropping it off? But no, that was surely ridiculous, wasn't it? I paced some more, unable to sit still with nervous energy. I pulled up the DoorDash app and scoured the details of my order, looking for, what? Some clue, some explanation for this nightmare. But there was nothing out of the ordinary. The restaurant, my name, the driver's name, all standard. Except when I tapped on the driver's profile, I felt a chill. His photo was just inscrutable sunglasses and a nondescript hat. The name read simply Tony T, no last name given. Had he thought ahead to remain anonymous? Dread pooled in my stomach like an oil slick. I stared and stared at the small photo, 1,000 scenarios running through my mind. None of them good. What kind of depraved person would do something like this, intentionally contaminate a stranger's meal? Had I somehow become a random target? Or was this part of a larger, more sinister plot? As I agonized over what to do next, I knew one thing. I couldn't simply throw the tainted food away and try to forget this ever happened. This Tony T needed to face consequences for his actions, whatever his motivations may be. First things first, I carefully bagged up the containers and put them in the fridge, tagging each one as evidence. The restaurant manager had said he would alert the proper health authorities, but I didn't want to leave this solely in their hands. At the very least, I needed to warn others. I spent hours drafting an email to DoorDash customer support, detailing the incident and my suspicions about the anonymous driver. I explained my deep unease and urged them to investigate Tony T further. I never received a reply. Over the next few days, I contacted everyone I could think of, the health department, the police, the restaurant multiple times, but I never got any real answers. No reassurances that Tony T had been looked into and banned from delivering food. No explanations at all. I felt like I was losing my mind. I kept peeking warily through the blinds, half expecting to see that mysterious driver lurking outside my home. I barely ate, too unnerved to have food delivered, and too anxious to cook. I was plagued by nightmares, where faceless figures sprinkled that strange powder into everything I consumed. Eventually, the containers in my fridge disappeared one by one as the authorities came to collect samples, though the results were never shared with me. The health department merely said the analyses showed nothing notable. Even weeks later, I still fixate on what really happened that night. I keep combing through my order history, scrolling endlessly through DoorDash looking for Tony T to pop up again, but it's like he never existed. No photo, no record of past deliveries, nothing. Sometimes I wonder if I imagined the whole awful experience, but deep down I know what I saw and what I ate. I don't think I'll ever look at food delivery the same way again. The fearful curiosity will always linger, an aftertaste I can't rinse away. It was shaping up to be another slow night for deliveries, so I decided to take a risk and sign up for some long-distance orders outside my usual area. One delivery in particular caught my eye. It was off Route 66, a long and notoriously deserted stretch of road that cuts through the mountainous wilderness surrounding our town. I had heard rumors that Route 66 was haunted ever since I was a kid. Stories circulated about unexplained apparitions and voices, cars mysteriously breaking down, and even some chilling unsolved disappearances. Of course, I brushed them off as nothing more than small-town folklore used to scare local teens away from partying out there. How could a road be haunted anyways? But staring at the delivery location on my phone, I felt a nervous pit growing in my stomach. Money is money, I reasoned with myself. I hit accept and the route was mine. As I navigated my compact sedan down the crumbling back roads leading towards Route 66, the setting sun stretched the shadows of the encroaching forest long across my path. I watched as the last warm hues faded from the evening sky, slowly swallowed up by darkness. Turning my headlights on did little to pierce the thickening gloom. An uneasy feeling washed over me, but I chuckled under my breath, trying to shake off the paranoia. There's nothing to be scared of out here, I told myself. No ghosts, no ghouls, just me, an empty road, and deliveries to make. The entrance to Route 66 was marked by a battered old wooden sign that read, "Slasher's Pass, 1 mile." I felt a chill run down my spine. Slasher's Pass? Who came up with that name? As I pondered turning around, it dawned on me. The customer was waiting for their package. I couldn't let my overactive imagination get the best of me. I steeled my nerves and pressed forward into the darkness of Slasher's Pass. Past that foreboding sign, the dense forest pressed closer against the edges of the crumbling road, looming like silent giants into the night sky. A thin mist hung low to the ground, swirling ghost-like around my car in spectral tendrils. I strained to see past my headlights, hyper-focused on each bend and twist that emerged. Without warning, my lights reflected back at me from something standing in the road. 2 narrow slits that took me a moment to process as eyes. I slammed the brakes in panic, heart seized by primal terror. But as quickly as it appeared, it was gone. Just a deer, I told myself, struggling to restart my stalled engine with shaking hands. Just a deer. I drove on, trying to steady my ragged breaths. The radio static bursting to life made me nearly jump out of my skin. I fumbled to turn it off, but the volume only rose, morphing into garbled voices murmuring just under the surface. I smacked the power button in vain. "Hello," I called out nervously into the empty night. "Is someone there?" The unintelligible whispers continued, indifferent to my pleas. At last I pulled over onto the gravelly roadside, yanked the radio from its moorings, and tossed it into the back in frustration. As suspected, just an electrical malfunction. Nothing supernatural here, right? I eased back onto the road cautiously. The silence now felt even heavier, almost oppressive, as if the darkness was slowly creeping into the car. I cranked the heater to combat the sudden bone-numbing chill and vigorously rubbed my arms for warmth. Why was it getting so cold? I could see my own breath forming little white clouds in the air. The icy temperature sank deeper, no matter how high I cranked the heat. Almost unconsciously, I found myself glancing at the back seat again and again. Get it together, I scolded myself, but I couldn't shake the feeling of unseen eyes tracking my every move. I pushed the car faster around each snaking curve, desperate to escape this cursed road. As I took one particularly sharp bend, my headlights briefly illuminated a mangled guardrail, and just beyond, the steep cliff's edge dropping off into nothingness. I felt my blood turn to ice in my veins. Oh God. 10 years ago, a local girl had gone missing on this very road. Some say she had crashed through that guardrail, plummeting to her death at the bottom of the ravine. They never recovered her body. Only now did the full implication dawn on me. Her tormented spirit must still haunt this road. I pressed the gas pedal down further as the engine roared in protest. Without warning, the steering wheel suddenly wrenched hard to the left, forcing me into the opposite lane. My screams were lost in the sickening screech of brakes as I swerved back into my lane, narrowly avoiding a head-on collision with the guardrail. As I hurtled onwards, it felt as if malevolent forces were toying with me, trying to send my car over the cliff's edge as well. At long last, I reached the delivery address, an ancient, crumbling farmhouse set back from the main road. I turned into the weed-choked driveway just as the front door creaked open. A figure emerged slowly, retrieved the package from my trembling grip, and shuffled back inside without a word. I didn't stick around to find out if it was man or ghost. I threw the car into gear and spun back onto Route 66, engine screaming as I pushed the speedometer to its max. The horrors of that night will stay seared into my mind forever. I've refused all deliveries, even remotely near that sinister stretch of road since. The locals say Route 66 has claimed many lives over the years, both in accidents and suicides. But not mine, not tonight. Some roads are better left untraveled. It was shaping up to be another slow night for delivery orders. I had only received a couple easy requests so far. Most folks in the city seemed to already have their dinners sorted. So when a new order popped up on my phone for a customer deep in the countryside, I accepted without thinking twice. The payout was decent, and I figured a long drive might be a nice change of pace. Oh, how wrong I was. I plugged the distant address into my GPS and started driving. The route took me out of the bright city streets, away from the reassuring glow of streetlights and storefronts. Soon I was traveling down increasingly narrow back roads, surrounded on both sides by thick, untamed forests. The paved roads slowly turned to gravel, then finally to a lone dirt path snaking between the trees. My unease grew with each passing mile marker. When the GPS announced I had arrived, I hesitated before even lifting my eyes to the destination. I could already feel that something was off. Reluctantly, I took in the decrepit and decaying old house that loomed before me. It looked completely abandoned, with boarded-up windows, peeling paint, a sagging front porch, and wildly overgrown weeds consuming the yard. Not a single light shone in the many glassless windows, like gaping voids staring back at me. And to make matters worse, night had already fallen during my long drive, enveloping the property in chilling darkness. Despite every instinct pleading with me, turn around and flee back to the safety of the city, the completionist in me refused to cancel the order unfinished. I grabbed the food and forced myself up the rickety front steps onto the porch. The rotting wood groaned under my weight, causing my heart to race even faster. After taking a deep breath, I knocked loudly on the weathered front door. No answer. I tried again, banging harder. Still silence. But suddenly a noise from within made me freeze. Was that footsteps? I strained my ears in the darkness, picking up faint but unmistakable thumping and creaking sounds, coming from somewhere inside the abandoned house. It sounded like someone or something lurking inside. Gripped by terror, yet also morbid curiosity, I leaned towards one of the dust-coated windows, peering through a crack in the boards that covered it. At first I saw nothing but pitch blackness, but as my eyes adjusted, I could just make out shapes of decrepit furniture, covered in layers of dust and peeling wallpaper stained brown with age. This place was clearly long abandoned, yet something had made that noise. I stumbled backward off the porch, nearly twisting my ankle on the broken front steps in my hurry to get away. I had to get out of there. Leaving the food on the doorstep, I raced back to my car. But just as I put it in drive, ready to speed off down the dirt road, a loud creak made me snap my eyes back to the house. The front door now stood ajar, Had I left it like that? I couldn't remember anymore. But the gaping doorway seemed to beckon to me, daring me to come inside and explore the abandoned house's secrets. Against my better judgment, I shut off the engine and crept back onto the porch. Peering through the open door, it took my eyes a moment to pierce the inky darkness within. As I scanned the interior, it looked just as dilapidated as the exterior. Decaying walls with peeling wallpaper, dust-covered antique furniture from decades past, holes in the floorboards. It seemed completely deserted, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Then I heard it, faint scraping and banging coming from somewhere deep inside the house. It was steady and rhythmic, as if someone was engaged in a repetitive task and had been for hours. But what kind of task makes such noises in an abandoned ruin? I shuddered, imagining what sort of sinister acts could be happening inside this house, hidden from the world by the isolating wilderness. My curiosity had turned to full-blown dread. I knew I needed to flee this place and never return. I forced myself to turn away from the open doorway, gaping at me like a mouth waiting to swallow me whole. What matters is getting out alive, I told myself. I can live without knowing the house's secrets. I raced back to my car, threw it in gear, and floored the gas pedal down the long dirt driveway until the GPS guided me back to the winding rural routes. Only once the lights of the city surrounded me again did I finally begin to breathe easy. Yet I couldn't stop obsessively checking my rearview mirror every few seconds, half expecting to see something nightmarish from that abandoned house pursuing me down the highway. When I got home, I immediately contacted DoorDash support and told them what happened, insisting they remove that delivery location from their system so no other driver would go through my trauma. The agent apologized profusely and promised the address would be blacklisted. But that still doesn't stop my panicked racing heart whenever I get an order taking me back to those desolate country backroads, dreading I may find myself on that same dirt path leading back to the abandoned house once again. Because now I know evil truly does lurk off the beaten path, hidden in the shadows, where no one can hear you scream. Thanks for listening in. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy these stories. Thank you so much for your support.